NBC News spoke with a detained undocumented migrant inside the South Texas Family Residential Center, the nation's largest immigration detention center, to hear about the harsh conditions brought on by the Texas winter storm. This person is a mother of two who has been detained with her daughters after being apprehended on the U.S. southern border. Her lawyer has asked that we don't use her name, fearing she may face repercussions for speaking to journalists. Take a listen to what she has to say about the conditions last week.
Bastante feo, incómodo, porque no teníamos agua. No teníamos agua, los baños se llenaron por completo, súper sucios, ya no había ni cómo ir a hacer una pipí.
She also described how her daughters are suffering after washing themselves last week with the tap water in the detention center.
Mis hijas están sufriendo de unas alergias en la piel. Los llevé con el doctor y es el agua que les está afectando.
We've had many families report lack of, especially in the last week, lack of electricity, lack of running water for services. The toilets in the facility were overflowing with excrement.
Allison Hari is the managing attorney for Proyecto Dili, which provides pro bono legal services to all the families held by ICE at the detention center. She says it's not only bad conditions, but there are legal implications to the power going out as well.
Our services for the families at the detention center center around their legal needs. And this week, their legal needs were not met. The power outages meant that there were no phones, which meant that the families could not talk to us.
Los primeros días uno como que dice, bueno, esto va a ser poco, pero este no es un lugar para tus niños y estamos un montón de tiempos aquí retenidos. Mis hijas de mi país también ya casi 6 meses. Y todo eso también me lo he pasado sufriendo, aguantando hambre, frío. Llegamos aquí y mis hijas están sofocadas que no se quieren ir, tienen alergias en el cuerpo. Entonces me siento muy mal me siento, la verdad, deprimida, impotente.
We asked ICE about the detainee and Allison Hari's specific claims. ICE said that while water service was interrupted, bottled water was continuously available and toilets are not overflowing. They also denied that any skin conditions were caused by water used at the facility and said that residents have continued access to medical care. Quote, the health, safety, and welfare of those in our care remain a top priority and concern for the agency. They also said that while there were intermittent power outages, quote, all facilities have backup generator power. Temperatures during the winter storm remained consistently over 70 degrees. Power and water services to the South Texas Family Residential Center were fully restored February 18th.
We have to keep screaming because the squeaker will get the grease. You know, you just can't be satisfied with the crumb. Okay, my name is Willard Davis, and I've been farming for about 60 or 65 years. My father was a farmer, his father was a farmer, and of course his farmer was a plantation slave. So you can see that sort of runs in my blood. The old saying is, when white farmers catch a cold, black farmers catch pneumonia. That's just how rough it's been. I've seen a lot of farmers, you know, who didn't make it. When we go in to borrow money, there's always an excuse. You know, we're out, we don't have that many left, or just anything to turn us down. We'd fill out the papers, and then they would just take the paperwork and just throw it in the trash. And then when we come back maybe a week or two, we say, well, you know, what happened to our loan? You know, they say, well, we don't have no records where you were even in here. It just got so bad we had to do something because we were losing everything we had.
Pigford versus Glickman is far from being one of our nation's most celebrated legal cases, and odds are you haven't even heard of it. But for black farmers in this country, Pigford is a big deal.
We're not equal just because we did a black farmers lawsuit. That didn't make everything come to balance. My name is Willard Tillman. I am the executive director of the Oklahoma Black Historical Research Project. We want equality and fairness. You know, we're not asking for a handout or anything like that. We just want to get just a little bit of help for some of the things that they have done to put us in the condition that we're in. I believe in Joe. I think Joe's heart is in the right place. But, you know, politics is another thing.
I'm a Republican. But this time, I didn't vote Republican. I voted for Democrat. I mean, they make us all these promises, and then once they get in office, they forget about us. So it's the same old thing all over again.
For Secretary of Agriculture, I nominate Tom Vilsack.
He has some shortcomings, but if he follows the agenda and we keep his feet to the fire, I think that he's going to have to, you know, do this, because Joe promised us this. And if Vilsack can't deliver, Joe's going to hear about it.
So do you think Joe Biden will forget about black farmers?
I hope not. That's all I can say. I hope and pray he doesn't, because we certainly need him to do what he said he was going to do. A lot of people have been not going to the restaurants. They've been staying at home. So therefore, it causes beef prices to go down. It has affected us just like anybody else, without a doubt. We could use more relief, yes. Farming is hard for everybody, but somebody got to feed this country.
Civil rights activists sounding the alarm on a new anti-riot bill in the Alabama legislature. If passed, protesters charged as rioters could face harsh penalties, things like minimum jail sentences, and even be barred from holding public office. The ACLU now tracking at least 60 bills like this in 26 different states. MSNBC senior national correspondent Chris Jansing joining us now from Montgomery, Alabama. Chris, a state representative whose former law enforcement wrote this bill. Walk us through what's in it, if you will.
Yeah, Allison, 31 years in law enforcement. And what Alan Treadway told me, and he just sponsored this bill today here behind me in the Alabama state legislature, is that after the protests that followed the death of George Floyd, he thought the laws simply weren't sufficient. And so he said that to protect law enforcement and to protect what he considers to be legitimate protesters, this law was needed. Take a look at some of the provisions. Extremely controversial, a mandatory 24-hour hold without bail for people who get arrested. Protesters say that will deny them due process. It ups fines, it ups jail time for virtually anything that's covered, and creates, in fact, new categories of crime. It even says that if you're a city or a locality that defunds police, you will lose state funding. So, to say the least, there's a huge controversy surrounding this, and already people are taking a close look on its constitutionality, Allison.
So, Chris, what are you hearing from civil rights groups there in Alabama? What are they saying about it?
Yeah, a lot of folks are telling me they believe it's a direct attack on Black Lives Matter. They say this is from an old playbook. They consider it to be a racist playbook to sort of present people who are legitimate protesters as violent agitators. Take a listen in their own words on what folks on both sides have to say about this.
If you take a brick and you throw it through a window and loot a store, or you take that brick and you bash a head in of a police officer, I want mandatory minimum sentencing to serve. We see what the destruction is left behind when you don't have law and order. This is a law and order bill.
We've heard the words law and order in other contexts where it has directly affected our families, and it has not been what he says it is.
It is going to give police more reason to cause brutalities on Black people, indigenous people, and other communities of color.
Bottom line, when I talk to many of these Black activists, they say if only the folks who are supporting this bill would give as much attention to the root causes of the problems that precipitated these protests, we'd be in a lot better shape.
Chris, on a national level, what's the concern among civil rights groups about this potentially being the first of many anti-protest bills across the country?
Yeah, they say they've absolutely never seen anything like it. I talked to one of the key people at the ACLU about this, Allison, and you mentioned those numbers at the top, which they consider to be unprecedented. 60 different bills in at least 26 different states. And what they tell me is, as they've carefully combed through them, what they're seeing is some of the same phrasing, even some nearly identical wording in these bills. For them, They say these are un-American, they're unnecessary, and in some cases unconstitutional, which is where legal challenges may come in. Look, Alan Treadway says he believes this is a law and order bill. He knew it would be controversial. He's going to stand by it. One more thing I should say, this is a supermajority state for the Republicans. They hold all the cards in the state legislature, so if they want to pass this bill, they can do it, Allison.
Wow, Chris, really unbelievable there just to see how many of those bills are possible in so many states, 60 in 26 states. Those are some numbers. Chris Jansing in Alabama, thank you so much.
Thank you.